I'm going to take a few minutes to explain the process that I used to restore a couple of MK2 Mod Zero Korean War era ammo cans that I picked up at a local auction. Before I even considered purchasing these cans, I did inspect them to make sure that the integrity of the can wasn't compromised, all the latches functioned properly, and that the factory gasket was still in good shape. The only other problems with these cans were a lot of rust and some mild pitting. I knew that with the materials that I had on hand, a little elbow grease, these cans could be restored back to a usable state. Alright, so the tools and the materials that I used for this project included a drill mounted wire wheel brush set, some Evapo-Rust rust remover, rubbing alcohol, paper towels, Rust-Oleum spray paint, 2 plastic storage containers, a cheap toothbrush, a tarp, some disposable gloves, an air compressor with an air nozzle, an air filtration mask, safety glasses, silicone rubber lubricant, and some water. The only thing that I actually had to purchase on this list was the spray paint. All the other tools and materials I had on hand from previous projects. My process started with wire brushing the majority of the rust off of this project. I spent about an hour to an hour and a half on each can. This step actually isn't necessary, but the Evapo-Rust solution that I use for rust removal is reusable, so I was trying to keep that as uncontaminated as possible. I purchased mine at Harbor Freight and it runs about $25 a gallon. After removing the majority of the rust with the wire wheel, I used the air compressor to clear the dust and remove any loose debris. After that, I put on a pair of disposable gloves and proceed to degrease and clean the entire ammo box with rubbing alcohol and paper towels. One thing I will note here is that even if you don't use the wire wheel, you still need to degrease your project. Evapo-Rust is strictly a rust remover. If the rust is covered with oil or dirt, the Evapo-Rust won't remove it because it can't get to it. Another thing I'd like to note is, from this point forward, anytime I'm touching the ammo box, I'll be wearing disposable gloves so as not to contaminate the project with the oils from my hands. Next, it's time for the Evapo-Rust bath. I had about 2 gallons of Evapo-Rust. So with the large size of these ammo boxes, I decided to rotate the boxes onto each of its sides in a shallow layer of Evapo-Rust for a period of about 12 hours each. So each ammo box, including the lid, took about 3 days to completely remove all the rust. Roughly about halfway through each bathing cycle, I would tilt the ammo box onto its side and use the toothbrush to scrub the area that was soaking to help move along the process a bit. During this time, I was treating the rubber gaskets with the silicone lubricant. While wearing disposable gloves, I would spray the lubricant into my hands, then massage it into the rubber material. I did this roughly 3 times for each gasket. After every Evapo-Rust bathing cycle, you need to submerge the Evapo-Rust soaked area in water to deactivate it. After doing this, I would dry it, then reapply rubbing alcohol, just so no water was dripping into my Evapo-Rust bath when I put it back in to de-rust another side. After a complete soaking in Evapo-Rust and the project being completely rust-free, I'd give it a quick once-over with the wire wheel to remove any leftover debris or flash rusting, which I really didn't see, but I did it anyway. Next was one final degreasing with rubbing alcohol before paint. The paint that I used was a 2-in-1 Rust-Oleum. I actually applied 4 coats. After the second coat, I would reposition the project to ensure good coverage of the paint. After the painting process was finished, I actually set this project aside for a day just to make sure that the paint was completely dry. Then the final step in this project was to reinstall the gasket. So in the end, after some elbow grease, a little bit of patience, and a minimal cost, I have a couple of large rust-free structurally sound ammo cans that will most likely outlast me. That's going to conclude my content on how I restored a couple of MK2 Mod Zero Korean War era ammo cans. I hope somebody out there got something from it. Feel free to leave your questions and comments, and stay safe and God bless.